I have been using Cursor AI to write React Web Page and Copilot Agent to write C# backend code for about 2 months. This was very impressive. I wanted to see what we could expect from an LLM like GPT4o or Claude 3.5 Sonnet. If we would give the LLM first a full C# exception information, and on the other side, the source code referenced by the exception. Could the LLM explain the problem? This is what I want to demo in this video. First, let's look at the guilty code. I created a C# class runtime analysis case 1. I have the property number, which is an integer, and a function run, which accept an input. The function will divide input by number. Very simple. Because the property number is not initialized, it will be 0. This will create a division by 0. To experiment, I created a little framework which allow me first to run the code, catch the exception, save the exception in a JSON file. Then I am reloading the information and ask my exception analyzer to analyze the exception and generate a report. Let's run the test. Obviously, I'm going to press F10 and I'm getting an exception, divide by 0. But here, I'm going to grab the exception, extract the different pieces of information, and save everything in a JSON file. I'm now loading the JSON file and calling Analyze and Generate Report. Here I'm calling GPT4o Web API and passing my prompt. I'm going to ask to generate a report. Let's look at the report. This is my prompt. You are a helpful and experienced developer. Analyze the following C# file name runtime analysis case 1 for the following exception. System divide by 0 exception at line 15. Below, I have the source code of the file with line numbers. Here is the line where the exception occurred. Here is the answer from GPT4o. The system divide by 0 exception occurs when there is an attempt to divide a number by 0. In the provided code, this exception is thrown at line 15. Property initialization. The number property is defined as an int with a public getter and setter. Yes. By default, if number is not explicitly set, it will have the default value for an integer, which is 0. Yes. This is the main issue. Division operation. In the run method, the division operation input divided by number is performed. If number is 0 at the time this method is called, it will result in a divide by 0 exception. Yes. What is the proposed solution? In the method run, when check for the number value before the division, and if 0, then throw an exception. Okay, I created case number 2 where I wanted to give more files to the LLM. Case number 2, it's still the same thing. I have a property number which is going to be the divider. But the value for number is read from a config file. I am using the function getNumberFromConfig to read the value from the app.config file. If the value read from the file is not null or empty, I will parse it and return it, or I'll return 0. Here's the config file, and you see in my file I do have a setting number but with an empty value. Obviously this is going to create another divide by 0 exception, but I'm going to give the LLM the exception, the source code, and also the source code of the config file. And I want to know if the LLM will be smart enough to figure it out that actually the issue is in the config file. Let's try it. Number is an empty string, so I'm returning 0. I am getting a division by 0 again. I am capturing the exception information. Reload the file. I am asking the LLM to now execute my prompt and get me an answer. Let's look at the report. Analyze the following C# file name runtime analysis case 2 for the following exception. System divide by 0 exception at line 23. In my prompt, I also have a section, Other Files. Here's a file, app.config, and the XML content. The divide by 0 exception occurs in the runtime analysis case 2 file at line 23. Okay. This exception is thrown when there is an attempt to divide an integer by 0. Okay. Configuration value retrieval. Nice. The method getNumber from config is responsible for retrieving a number from the application configuration file. I am going to jump to bullet 4 configuration file content. In the provided app.config file, the value for the key number is an empty string. Resulting behavior. Since the value is an empty string, the condition not string is null or empty of number evaluates to false, and the method returns 0. Yes. What is the proposed solution? To prevent this exception, ensure that the configuration value for number is set to a non-zero integer. Update the app.config file to include a valid integer value. It also proposes to update function getNumber from config, so it would throw if the value from the config file is not valid. Nice. Using this framework, I created multiple cases with exception or simply bad code and asked the LLM GPT4o or Claude 3.5 Sonnet for analysis, and I got very good results. Next step, for real-life situation. I am planning to instrument my log file browsing tool, FlogViewer, so that when I see a C# exception in a production log, and since my laptop has the source code of the product I am working on, I should be able to create a prompt with the exception info, the main source code file, the config file, the JSON settings files, and information about the type of project and process, and ask for an explanation. Thank you.